The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
From Mallory Square in Key West to the Governor's Mansion in Tallahassee and all points beyond, you're listening to the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com, your source for all things related to the craft beer community in the Sunshine State. And now your host, Dave Butler.
Welcome to another episode of the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com. This is Dave, your host and author. Hopefully you've been checking our Instagram account because we do have some contests going on because it is beer festival season. And the next couple of episodes, we are going to be featuring a few beer festivals that the Florida Beer Podcast will be visiting, which is kind of awesome. But before we get started, that Instagram account that I kind of want you to go to right now is at Florida Beer Blog. It's also our Twitter handle. We are, we'll be on Twitter as long as Elon Musk wants us to. If you're on Facebook, that is FL Beer Blog. And obviously our web pages are floridabeerblog.com, floridabeerpodcast.com, and floridabeerblog@gmail.com if you prefer to reach out and touch someone. We are also a proud member of the Florida Podcast Network. Obviously, I want you to go to floridapodcastnetwork.com to hear all the awesome things that are coming down from our sister shows, which are pretty fun. But for today's episode, you are going to hear what it's like when right before, 15 minutes before interviewing one of my favorite guests for the podcasts, AT&T decides to cut all of our internet access, and I am forced to sit outside at a Starbucks on a windy day with a substandard headset on. That is literally the best I could do. Please do not sue me, but at least we got some really awesome content. Coming up on November 12th is the next edition of the North Miami Brewfest. If you have never been to this beer festival, you have not been to a beer festival. This is one of, if not my absolute favorite festivals in the state of Florida, if not the country. And part of why I love it so much is it puts education front and center. And by education, I of course mean that it is a part of and put on by the faculty and staff and students at the Chaplin School of Hospitality and Tourism Management at Florida International University. Now, we have featured some of these people on the podcast before. We will be there recording live, which is awesome. That's going to be a first for us. But what I have noticed about the event is as it continues to grow and as it continues to go through more and more and more iterations and just get bigger and bigger and bigger, more of the Chaplin School is participating in the event. Previously, it was just the Brewing Arts program headed up by Dr. Barry Gump, obviously no stranger to the podcast. But now we have additional groups that are in the Chaplin School that are going to be participating as well. Obviously, the breweries are growing. The restaurants that are participating are growing. There's a lot of great stuff that's happening at this event. And so we are very proud to welcome back Dr. Michael Cheng, Dean of the Chaplin School of Hospitality and Tourism Management on Florida International University's Biscayne Bay campus, which is just south of Aventura. And we're going to talk to Dean Cheng about everything that has been going on behind the scenes, putting on this beer festival, all of the things at the Chaplin School that are going to be participating in the North Miami Brewfest, obviously some of the restaurants, some of the breweries, and how all of that fits into delivering a real world hands-on learning experience for the students at the Chaplin School. He is one of my absolute favorite people in the state of Florida. especially since he is able to kind of see the big picture and really understand the importance of a solid education and what that can do, not just for brewing, obviously, but for the hospitality industry here in the Sunshine State as well. So here we go. Another episode with Dr. Michael Cheng, Dean of the Hospitality and Tourism Management School at Florida International University. Enjoy. With the North Miami Brewfest, one of the things that I absolutely love about it is, not only does it focus on the beer, obviously, but it has been a way to highlight the Chaplin School of Hospitality and Tourism Management. And it seems like over the years, more of the school has gotten involved in the event, especially with this year, because there's even more than before. So I would love to hear the story of that.
Sure. So the North Miami Brewfest, this is our 5th year, but we actually started the Brewfest 5 years prior to it being named the North Miami Brewfest. And 2 years before that, we launched our brewing science program. So it initially started off as a small on-campus, about 200 people, 200 guests that would come to campus. And then we have a half-day brewing session, some workshops, as well as some beer tastings. And from there, we kind of grew out of the building. Instead of on the patio, then we moved over to the Covens Conference Center for like a couple of years. And when we got to the point where we're attracting 300-400 people, I think that's when the city of North Miami said they'd be interested in hosting us, since we're located in the city of North Miami anyways, the campus itself. So that's when the partnership really grew at that point. And from the first year to the 5th year, we have seen tremendous growth. Last year was the biggest crowd. We had, I believe, close to 2,000 guests that came last year. And this year, we're hoping to hit at least that many. And then we started introducing different programming activities in there. The focus has always been on craft beer. But now we also involve our food and beverage department and even our new student-run Bartenders Guild. So last year we debuted them, and then they were making beer cocktails, which is a whole new area.
Yeah, right. I was going to say, because that was one of the first organizations from FIU that really piqued my interest. Obviously this is a beer event. We'll talk about the beer here in a little bit. But what is that guild? What is this organization? Kind of how are they tied into the Chaplin School? And please describe a little bit more about what they're going to be bringing.
Sure. So the Bartenders Guild is a student-run organization started as an offshoot of the Bacardi Center of Excellence. About 3 years ago, we got a gift from the Bacardi USA to create the Bacardi Center of Excellence. And besides having endowed professorship and scholarships and job opportunities for students, is the programming aspect of it. So this is where the students really jumped on, and were very excited to try new creations, make up their own recipes, and even new ingredients and new techniques, And when we asked the student if they would be interested in the Brewfest, and they say, well, how the spirits mix into this? And think of beer as an ingredient. And that's how it became. So they came up with some really cool creations last year. I don't remember the names of it, but I do remember trying 3 different ones. The process is still a mixology process, and then they're making it as though they were making a cocktail. However, beer is the primary ingredient.
And obviously, that was a great partnership that you have with Bacardi. Does the Chaplin School have and continue to have a lot of those relationships with hospitality and tourism businesses in the area? Because obviously you mentioned Bacardi. There's a lot of other organizations in Miami-Dade, especially a lot of the cruise lines. What kind of partnerships do you generally try to grow, and how much of those partnerships are beyond just, give us money, and, what kind of things can your employees provide to our students in their education, and obviously vice versa?
Yeah, I would say a lot of our partnerships have moved away from like what you described, where we have companies that will say, we want to establish a scholarship, and then that's the end of that relationship. But now we've started having more impactful discussions and conversations with these companies and all different individuals as well about the transformational impact of their donation. And what I mean is, it's like everybody has a goal they want to achieve, right? So for instance, for Bacardi themselves, they were not looking to just create scholarships, and they could do scholarships any place. And the reason why they chose FIU as a partner was because they saw the work that we were doing, how innovative our curriculum is. As a matter of fact, last night, some of you may know David Grutman. He owns a few restaurants as well as runs Live and Story nightclub. So David Grutman is a adjunct professor for us. He teaches for us part-time, and there's a class that he created called the David Grutman Experience, where the essence of the class is about entrepreneurship within the hospitality industry. So he shares stories, and he literally opens up his whole life and his book, and he involves his whole company, Good Hospitality, in the whole presentation and lectures on how to run the businesses and how to grow an idea and how to be successful with branding, marketing, watching their P&L. And he brings in a lot of celebrities. And just last night, he brought in the biggest name I've ever seen to our FIU campus. And that's Drake. So no one's ever
kind of awesome.
Yeah, no one's ever seen Drake on an FIU campus before. And
any chance he could get Drake to perform at the Brewfest next weekend?
Drake is a celebrity for sure. I don't know how David pulled it off, but this is I try not to push my luck with it. But it was amazing. The feedback that we got from the students, and Drake's very open about what he does too, and how he became successful. The people he works with. So there's a lot of life lessons to be learned in there. I remember in David's class, the first one, he had DJ Khaled, and DJ Khaled spent a good hour with the students just talking about how he does and what he's doing now, his latest project, and made a lot of great life lessons in there. So those are the kind of transformational partnerships. We're not looking for just a one-way street. We really do want to work with companies and different entities and individuals on how can we impact change. So the namesake of our school, the Chaplin family, and they own Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. So another example of that partnership is the South Beach Wine Food Festival. So many people don't know that the South Beach Wine Food Festival in its 21st year, and it's coming up next February as its 22nd year. All the proceeds goes to benefit scholarships and operations, as well as the curriculum at the Chaplin School. And over 1,000 students, about 1,200 students every year volunteer at this festival, right? But it's not just Southern Glazers partnering with the school to run the South Beach Wine Food Festival for the community. Southern Glazers also supports and really believes in our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. We graduate the most minorities, literally the most students who are Black, African American, and Hispanic with a degree in hospitality management than any other school in the whole country. And they can see that we have the demographic. They can see that we want to impact change within the industry. So they partner with us and provide us seed funding to hire professors about 2 years ago now. So we're the only hospitality school that has an endowed professor in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that's making change. We could add in a class, which we did, but beyond that, what else are we doing? So without their support, we couldn't move the needle a whole lot. With the support, we have a professor, and we just launched something called the Alliance. It actually stands for the Alliance for Hospitality, Equity, and Diversity. And what that is intended to do is nationwide. We're partnering with different universities, companies like Marriott, Hyatt, Hilton's, Blooming Brands, and then associations like the American Hotel Lodging Association, the National Restaurant Association, the National Association for Black Hotel Owners, Operators, and Developers. And together, we want to create a pathway for underrepresented minorities to ascend into the C-suite. We're seeing there's not enough diversity in the C-suite, and this is us making a stance, but not just by ourselves, but working with other companies and other universities and associations.
That's absolutely amazing, especially as a lot of industries, craft beer included, are starting to take a look at their diversity efforts and kind of making sure that the makeup of the industry reflects the makeup of society as a whole. I think that's absolutely fantastic that the Chaplin School is there. You also mentioned sort of the restaurant tour side of the school. And that I think is interesting because I did not realize that that existed. I know the first time that I went to go visit the brew lab, that there were, I think, either Goya or Saison or whatever packets that were there for
Badia spices. Yeah.
But there we go. Thank you so much. And I was amazed. Can you discuss a lot of that aspect? Because it seems to be it's much more than just front of house, but it's also kitchen as well, and kind of leading up to, I think, the FIU Bistro and who they are.
Sure. So we are not a culinary school. We're hospitality management, but we get students transferred to us from culinary programs like Johnson and Wales when they were in town, as well as the Culinary Institute of America. And what they want to do is really to be successful restaurateurs. And even the most successful restaurants usually have a very strong culinary person, as well as someone who really understands the management side, the profit and loss portion of how to run a business. And that's what we offer. We provide training on all the management aspects of it. And then for those who are not seeking to become a chef, we also have within our curriculum a required class in basic culinary fundamentals, just so they understand how kitchens work. And what we do every semester, I think for the last 4 years now, is on Wednesdays. It's been a pretty stable schedule. On Wednesdays, we have the FIU Bistro, and that is run and operated by our students. So we open for lunch and dinner only. And just this semester? Yeah, just this semester, we were voted by Miami Times as best inexpensive restaurant in Broward and Miami-Dade County. So we're very proud of that fact. But the students are able to help the faculty and the professor and create the menu. And then they also manage and operate. So they do the food preparation, the sourcing, the whole service aspect of it. And they even get to create the cocktails. Actually, it's mocktails because we don't serve alcohol during the meals.
Okay, that makes sense. That's kind of amazing. I definitely want to check that out. And it's Wednesdays at the Biscayne.
Wednesdays, yep. Right? Mm-hmm. Lunch and dinner.
Okay, but they are also going to be, and this is one of the other great things that I absolutely love about the North Miami Brewfest, is that you have restaurants and restaurateurs from around the area that are giving samples as well. So it's not just beer. And is this going to be the first year that the FIU Bistro is going to be there as well?
Last year they were there too. So this will be the return year. They were there last year, right next to our FIU Bartenders Guild booth.
Gotcha. That's kind of amazing. Obviously, if you don't have the information, I understand, but do you have any kind of sneak previews of some of the things that we can expect to see this year or that they had provided for festival goers last year?
Unfortunately, I don't have those details. I wish I do, but I don't.
Gotcha. But it has been interesting to see how much the restaurant aspect of Miami-Dade's hospitality industry has been represented at the North Miami Brewfest. Why was that so important? And how do you continue to find the people that not only want to come to the event, but on your end sort of represent the wide breadth of culinary possibilities in the county?
I think for really one of the reasons why we have such a nice variety of different entrepreneurs and restaurateurs represented at the North Miami Brewfest is, number one, is our location in North Miami, and we understand and we know who we are. We're a university for the community, and it's not just the North Miami community, but the entire Miami-Dade County. Right. So, and we know where our students come from too. So 37% of my students at the Chaplin School are Hispanic. Another 12% are Black and African Americans. And then about 38% are international students. So we know that we have to be mindful of where our students are coming from, as well as what we can inspire them to do. And for us, the best way to inspire a student is to show them what success looks like. So if we can show successful restaurateurs, that's what we go to, and that's why we invite restaurateurs of all diverse backgrounds and cuisines to be part of the North Miami Brewfest. We also want to make sure that we are always supporting the industry that has continued to support us all these years. Practical experience is a necessity within our curriculum. and our students need internships in order to graduate. So they're placed in a lot of different areas, hotels, restaurants, and so on. And when the pandemic caused a lot of us to close our doors temporarily, we felt the pain that they had to endure. And that's when 2 years ago, we started the relief fund right away, even before the government's PPP paychecks went out. And that's us giving back to the community that's always helped us. And then we also created a safety and sanitation class certification course for them that was launched in partnership with, I can't remember the name of the group now, but down in the city of Miami. And that's us, again, being one and the same with the community that we are in.
That's awesome. And I will say that the name that I had not anticipated showing up in terms of the culinary offerings, but I'm very happy to see on your website is coming this year is Versailles.
Yes,
and
yes.
It's like, hey, like in terms of restaurants and stories within the Miami-Dade sort of community, that's one of like the tops. So it's kind of amazing that they are coming.
Yeah. And I think also because the general counsel for Versailles is our graduate. So there's a connection to FIU there.
I was going to say, because there's a lot of restaurants, some I have heard of, like Kush and so on. And then there's some interesting ones like Raising Cane's and whatnot. And we'll talk about this with the breweries as well. But going back to the restaurants, do you always try to search out, or is it easier to find people that have connections or are alumni from the Chaplin School?
We'd like to first highlight our own alumni first. So those are the ones we always go to first. And we like to help promote their businesses as much as we can. And you see Temple Street Eatery is also owned by our alum. So he'll always be there. So I think then we kind of have, we don't want to be exclusive. So we also open it up to everybody else who's in the city of North Miami, particularly during this time when everybody's still trying to get back on their feet. So it's important that we support the community that has been supporting us.
Perfect. And of course, we're going to end up with the beer because it is a brewfest first and foremost. I guess in terms of the hospitality industry, in terms of the culinary makeup of Miami-Dade County, as you talk to all of these leaders and movers and shakers, have you noticed that the attitude towards beer as less a way to get drunk and more of a part of a good culinary driven menu, has that attitude started to change in the 10 years that you've been doing the North Miami Brewfest?
I think it is also influenced by the demographics of the different generations, really. We're not seeing young college students go out for binge drinking, like when I was a college kid. They really appreciate the flavor, the subtleties of the different beers and different wines and different cocktails. That's why we have such a strong beverage program. So it kind of goes for beer too. There's a lot that you can experiment with. And, it has really grown. Craft beer brewing has grown from being done in a garage inside someone's home to really having a science behind it. Dr. Barry Gum, he's our eminent professor for beverage management. He's the one who started our brewing science program. But he really is the guy who wrote the guidelines and the policy for safety and sanitation in a brewing lab. And he's taken that, and now we have breweries like the Tank, as well as Cervecería La Tropical. They've implemented those kind of guidelines. Now they do their own microbial testing on site. Now it used to be, if it smells bad, it went bad. But if it doesn't smell bad, it's good. But now they actually taste and test it before anything goes bad drastically.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see, especially with the couple breweries that you mentioned and some others here in the state of Florida, how sometimes they built the lab even before they built the brewery just to make sure, and it's so important. And obviously with a lot of the breweries, a lot of them have gone through the Brewing Arts program with Dr. Gump. In the past, you have highlighted those breweries that have FIU alumni on their staff or ownership. Is that something that you're going to be doing again this year?
Absolutely. Yep. We're definitely going to highlight alumni again. And we're also making a very considered effort, not just to highlight alumni, but work with FIU's Alumni Association. Because, the Chaplin School, we've been here for 50 years now, and we have roughly 17,000 plus alumni globally. But we find over and over again that not everybody who owns a restaurant or a hospitality business or hotel or brewery came through the Chaplin School. So they have different backgrounds. And that's why we want to highlight them. It's not us being just focusing only on hospitality graduates, but working closely with Alumni Association. You're going to see a strong presence there this year, as well as in next year's South Beach Wine Food Festival.
Interesting. Are there any breweries that you're looking forward to trying? Because there's some people there that I've heard of, that I've spoken to, have not been able to try their beers. So it's exciting for me to visit with them. And then obviously some other ones that I've been very familiar with. So who are you most excited to try?
I think the one I'm most excited has to be La Tropical. You know, they're just phenomenal. And Matt Weintraub, he's the head brewer and the guy who handles the operations there, but he really does know what he's doing. He has amazing palate. Now he came from the tank too, so he helped with all those flavors over there. I mean, I love the locale that they develop over there and then the light version of it. Then they go to La Tropical and you find that he's really expanded his horizons over there. It's just incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. They are one of the many breweries that I am definitely going to enjoy trying. But the best brewery, and I will say this to everybody, as much as our professional brewers are amazing, one of the best things about the event is the Brewing Arts tent itself. Trying the beers that the students under Dr. Gump are actually making them there themselves. And I think we're going to be speaking to Albert during the event. Is that correct?
Correct.
And if you could give us a little bit of sneak preview for our next episode that we're going to be recording live at the North Miami Brewfest, what can we expect from the Brewing Arts tent, and who is Albert and what is his background?
So Albert is our brewing science technician, and he's been, I would say, apprenticing, I guess, under Dr. Gump, for quite a while now. So he really does know what he's doing. His sense of experimentation is just out of this world. Now he's created new flavors. He's dabbled in sake as well. And then for a while there, he was making kombucha. It's just what he wants to do and what he's willing to try and create new flavors is just incredible. I'm not going to spill any secrets, but y'all definitely should come by to the FIU Brewing Science tent and try the different creations. I know he's got a dark beer that's just phenomenal. You have to try that one.
Okay, well, I'm going to probably be making a beeline for that tent as well, and hopefully I'll be able to meet you and Dr. Gump and everybody else there. Dean Michael Cheng from the Chaplin School of Hospitality and Tourism Management, thank you so much for coming back on the show. Cannot wait to see you again on the 12th.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you there too.
So here we are getting ready for the event. Obviously, we're going to be speaking to a number of people. I've already got some other breweries lined up to chat with us. Some that have been on the podcast before, and some that it's going to be their first time. So I'm very, very excited about that. If you are going to the event and you see us, make sure to say hi. If you're not going to the event, hopefully we will see you there next year. It is definitely an absolute blast. And not only is the beer great, the food is great. There's a lot of things to learn and a lot of great ways to just interact with the Chaplin School there. Next week, we are going to be featuring another beer festival that's not too terribly far away from North Miami Beach. Actually, it's probably a couple hours away. And if you are following us on Instagram, you can win tickets to that beer festival. Obviously, I'm going to make you wait until next week to figure out exactly who that is. The Florida Beer Podcast is a proud partner of the Florida Podcast Network. Jeff Brozovich is our intro announcer. Field producer is Steve Picala. Executive producer for the Florida Podcast Network and Grand High Poobah is Jemmy Legagneur. Thank you so much for listening to our humble episode. Remember, if you are listening to us on the podcasting app of your choice, please make sure to subscribe to us. You'll get all the latest episodes the moment they come out. And if you can rate those episodes, that makes it even better, because that way you'll be able to share with your friends everything that's been going on in the state of Florida when it comes to craft beer. This is Dave, your host and author. Thank you so much for listening, and drink Florida Craft.